Hello gang, and welcome back to my office. Yeah, you saw I was in front of the bar the first time, then I was over. Now I'm at my desk now. You guys have asked so many questions after my BVI videos about the itinerary and moorings versus MOORINGS. You're asking a lot of questions, and I thought, well, why don't I just come on, make a video, and answer all those questions? And so everybody can see what everybody else is asking and hear all the answers all at once in one place, right? So, and probably going to be some questions you didn't even think to ask that you're going to hear right now when I get going here. But before I get started, I wanted to fill you in about our recent trip to the Bahamas. We just went there and we chartered a Moorings 514 PC 51 footer. And the reason why we went to the Bahamas, we were going to go to the BVI. That was my intention. However, the COVID protocols in the BVI kind of shied me away from that and turned me towards the Bahamas, easy for me to say. The BVI protocols are you have to get your COVID test, obviously, a couple of days before you enter the country. Then after you enter the country, 4 days later, you have to take another test. Now the problem is, and that's fine, but the problem is during those 4 days, you are not allowed off of your charter. In other words, you can't go to Foxy's, you can't go to a restaurant. You can go to a beach that's uninhabited on a little private island, but basically you have to stay in your family unit and that you can't go anywhere. Well, in a 7 or 8 day trip, to have to spend half of it on the charter without actually enjoying what the BVI has to offer, soggy dollar bar, all that stuff, we just decided Bahamas was a better thing to do because Bahamas have similar protocols. However, you have your test and you get into the country and then you take a test 5 days later. During those 5 days, though, you can go do anything you want to do in the Bahamas. So that just made more sense to us, and Bahamas also did an excellent job of providing facilities on tiny little islands all over the EXUMAS where you could take a test. So that was really cool too, and also they were able to give us the test to get back into the States. So it worked out really well. It was just the right thing to do, and Moorings is really kind of the only company you can charter with for the EXUMAS. MOORINGS has a base up in the Abacos, which is northern part of the Bahamas. So two different areas of the Bahamas. And we wanted to go to the EXUMAS, so that's why we picked Moorings and did that. I'll link all those videos that I made from the Bahamas trip below. Okay, let's get to some questions. Here we go. Quick and easy first one. What kind of camera are you using for your water recordings? GoPro, baby. It's all GoPro. I constantly run my GoPro at 120 frames. I don't do it 24 frames, 30 frames, 60, and that. Always at 120, and here's why. Generally with a GoPro, you're out in the sun, right? So at 120 frames, that's really fast, but there's enough sun to make it look great, and you can slow-mo anything you have. So that's one reason why I like doing that. If it's at night and you're trying to shoot something, 120 frames is going to be too dark. Take it back down to 24 frames or 30 frames, and it'll brighten it up if you want to shoot at night with the GoPro. Although I don't recommend that. I don't think they're that good at night. Okay, this is a really good question here. The quote for sleeper board for moorings at BVI was much more expensive than renting a couple of rooms at the Mariner. Okay. First of all, a sleep aboard, if you didn't hear my first video about moorings versus MOORINGS, a sleep aboard is when you rent your charter 1 day in advance of you taking it out. And the reason why you do that is so that you can sleep aboard your charter the night before you leave. That way you can unpack, get settled, get your groceries and all that good stuff. It's either you do that or you have to get a hotel room. He's referring to the Mariner, which is the hotel adjacent to the moorings in the BVI. What I said is it was less expensive to be on the charter, on the sleep aboard, than it is to get a hotel room. What he's pointing out here is just make sure that you check into this before making your decision. And he's right. Because what he's basically saying is that he was able to get 2 rooms at the Mariner. He could fit all of his people, his family or whoever he was traveling with, into 2 rooms. So that naturally is going to be cheaper than the boat. The boat's going to be one price no matter how many people are on it because it has a certain amount of bedrooms and that's what you're buying. So what I did is I went back and looked at my last 2 trips to the BVI with the moorings. The first trip I stayed at the Mariner and I had to have 4 bedrooms. I had to have 4 bedrooms because the family dynamic was such that I needed 4 rooms, right? If you can cram all your family into 1 or 2 rooms, it's going to be cheaper. But I had to have 4 rooms. So that cost me $1,580. That was kind of high season then. It was $395 a room. The next time I went, I did the sleep aboard. and it was $12.74. So that really was a savings of $306 for me. So it did help me, and it was a savings for me. This viewer is trying to say that it's much cheaper for him to stay at the hotel, and he's right. So just check and see which one is actually going to be cheaper and what makes the most sense for you. Again, even if the sleeper board was a little more expensive, I'd still do it, because just settling in that night before, it's worth it. Here's a comment. You didn't mention that in the MOORINGS fleet, there is a private head with shower for each cabin in all boats, which for me is a big plus. That's correct. MOORINGS, the 36, the 44, and the 48, every bedroom has its own head. It's almost that way with the moorings. I think the 433, you may have to share a head for one side of the hull, I think. But the Aquilas, which again are the boats that MOORINGS uses, all have separate bedrooms with their own head. The 44 is a great little boat. It has a full beam master. What does that mean? The master bedroom is the entire width of the boat. It's in the front of the boat. And that's really the way for mom and dad to go while the kids are in the other bedrooms. Okay, was one company more or less money than the other? Comparing the same size and type of boat. Great input with the water maker, by the way. Yes, well, it's a good thing that this person mentioned the water maker with this price question, because MOORINGS is more expensive than the moorings, just slightly. But the water maker is on board on the Aquila, and I think the Aquila is just a better boat too. So I didn't mind paying that extra money. Again, the water maker is such a huge deal. Just went to the Bahamas in the moorings, the 514 PC. We ran out of water one night and no way to make water. We had to wait till we can get to the next dock that had water to fill it back. It's just kind of a pain in the butt, right? So when you have a water maker constantly making fresh water, then you can take as long of a shower as you want. When you don't have that, you take a really quick shower, you know, and it's just not as convenient. So the extra money that MOORINGS costs, to me, is worth the water maker. Here's a really great sarcastic question, which is very smart. So these two companies rent out their expensive boats to anyone? Surely there is a type of training or certification that is required before they will rent it to you. Yes, of course. You have to prove to these two companies that you have spent a certain amount of hours behind the helm of a boat that is the same size as the one that you're going to be operating. That just makes sense. I'm not quite sure how you prove that, but the way I did it is I took 2 courses with US Powerboating. You can go to uspowerboating.com and you can take a look at these 2 courses. The first course I took was Basic Powerboating. This is just a basic course. There's like a test with 200 questions on it. I felt like I was in college again, but I aced it. So I took that, and then I also took Inshore Cruising. This is a really good course that teaches you about navigation and all sorts of things that you need to know when you're captaining your own boat. I had been around boats my entire life, but I'd never really owned one. So, and certainly not this size, 51-footer for crying out loud, or a Power Cat for that matter. So I live in Southern California. I found a company down in Marina del Rey, and so I went on weekends and one day during the week. It took me about 2 to 3 months, and I got both of those courses finished. I also took nighttime navigation because I had just never done that before, and what I found out is that I never want to drive a boat at night, is what I found out. I'd rather be drinking wine anyway. So both of those courses, if you take those 2 courses, the Basic Powerboating and the Inshore Cruising, that will qualify you to be able to charter a boat with either MOORINGS or moorings, or anybody really. Okay. Here's an interesting question here. We're trying to figure out what company to go with for a week-long BVI charter, just renting a guest room for myself and my wife. I guess what he's trying to say, or this person is trying to say, is they want to piggyback on somebody else's charter and rent a room. Well, that ain't happening. unless you just sit at the dock and thumb people by and say, you got an extra bedroom I can rent? I don't know how you could do that. Now, what you can do, though, is you can hire a captain and a chef. As a matter of fact, moorings and MOORINGS both will let you do that, and generally they're couples. It's a man and a woman, and one of them's a captain, one of them's a chef, and they share the same bedroom. So you have to relinquish one of the bedrooms of the charter, but you don't have to worry about captaining the boat or tides or waves or anything. You don't have to worry about cooking breakfast. You got somebody on board. Now you can do one or the other. You can do a captain only, a chef only, or both. So that's the way to go if you don't really want to occupy an entire boat yourself. Here's a delicate question. What do you guys do with the daily trash? My wife is a bit nervous about the bathroom trash, if you know what I mean. I do know exactly what he means. Where do you store the used toilet paper, as I assume the Marine Head is not for paper? We have been to the BVI a few times, and I'm trying to get the family to go out on a charter with Marine Max on the BVI or Abacos, but the question I asked is holding the girls in the family back. You got a lot of girls, so I assume you're a subject matter expert. Yeah, I am. I tell you, it's really interesting with the moorings. The first time I went with the moorings, we got that speech of not putting paper down the head. And so that was pretty yucky and it's not fun at all. On the Aquila, they don't have that problem there. That's no problem. And as a matter of fact, the last 2 times that I've chartered with moorings, I haven't been told to do that either. I was only told to do that once, and every time I ask after that, they're like, no, don't worry about it, put the paper down. Maybe it's in the newer models, I don't know, but we don't have that issue. Now, I will tell you, dumping out in the ocean, so to speak, is so much easier on the Aquilas than it is the Leopards. Now, what does that mean? Well, when you're a mile offshore, you are allowed to dump your black water, right? It's fish food. But getting it done is a little more complicated with moorings and on the Leopard. You have to go down into one of the bedrooms in the starboard hull, lay down on the floor, pull the floor up, reach in around the corner, pull the lever, and release the black water. So you got to sit there and let it go for a while, and then you close it. And then you got to get up and go to the other hull, lay down, open it up. Oh, by the way, while we're going, and if there are waves, you're down there. So it's just a little more difficult and a little more of a pain in the butt, so to speak, to have to do it with the Leopards that moorings uses. Aquila is a flip of a switch. You just go to the electrical panel and you hit starboard black water pump on, and then there's a gauge. There's a black water gauge there. You can watch it go down. When it hits 0, you just turn the pump off and you're done. It's that simple on all Aquila boats. So far better to do that than have to get on your belly and do all that other business. So good question. Tell the ladies, get on the charter, especially if you're on an Aquila, you'll have no problem. So that's it. I mean, there are more questions coming in almost every day, so probably around once a month I'll try to do this if it makes sense, if you guys like this. Just keep the questions coming. You can DM me on my Instagram, or you can just leave messages here on YouTube, and I'll be happy to answer those next time, all right? Thank you again. Please subscribe to the channel, and I've linked a lot of my BVI and Bahamas videos down below. You can take a look at them. Bye.